Guys, welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to talk about CSS pseudo classes. What are pseudo classes? A pseudo class is used to define a special state of an element. An example, it can be used to style an element when a user mouses over it, when style visited and unvisited links differently. You can also style an element when it gets focus. The syntax of pseudo classes: we have a selector, then we have pseudo class, and we have property and the value. Go to your index.html file. We are going to have our sample. We are going to have our sample text here. This link is my portfolio website, and then we have our paragraphs. Now we want to style our pseudo classes, and the links that we are going to style, we are going to select the state at which the link is at the moment. We are going to begin with the unvisited link. We will write our anchor and full colon link, open and close curly braces. We're going to give it a color of hashtag FF, capital FF, and then 4 zeros, and our link will be of color red. We are now going to style our visited link so that when we visit this link, it's going to give us a different color. We'll copy and paste this text here, and then we'll write the state is visited, and then we give it a different color, which is color green. The next one, I'll just copy and paste the same text here, and this will be the color that will appear when we mouse over a link. And we'll write our A tag, our anchor, and hover, and we'll give it a color of hot pink. Then we'll copy and paste the same text, and we're saying when the link is selected, which color do we want it to appear? So we'll say a link with active link, the link that is selected right now, the active link, and we are going to give it color blue. When you hover over this link, you'll see it changes color to hot pink. When you click on it, it changes its color to blue, and already now that we have visited the link, it turns its color to green. Now this is what we call the pseudo classes. The next thing we are going to look at is what we call the pseudo elements. A pseudo element is used to style specified parts of an element. For example, it can be used to style the first letter or line of an element. We are going to look at this text here. We have our sample text. I'll write a comment so that it can give us a direction. I'll copy and paste the text that we will be using to style our first line. I'll comment on this so that we can see the effect that the first line will have when we style it. We'll have our paragraph, and then we will use double colons and then write first line, open and close curly braces. We'll give it color. It's going to be color hash FF, and then zeros will be color red. And you can see that now our first line has changed its color to red. We're going to give it font variant, which will give it a small caps, and all our first line paragraphs changes to small caps. We are going to comment on this first paragraph so that we can look on another element that is called the first letter pseudo element. We want to style the first letter, and for us to do that, we need to use this pseudo element that is called first letter. So I'll write a comment here, first letter, and I'll just copy and paste the same text that we had before. We go to style.css file. In style.css file, we write our paragraph with double colons, and then first letter, open and close curly braces. We're going to say color equals to blue, and then we're going to give it a font size of extra large. And you can see in our browser now that our first letter has changed its color to blue, and it has also changed its size to extra large. The next thing we are going to look at is what we call the before pseudo element. And the before pseudo element can be used to insert some content before the content of an element. We will look at an example. After, let us write a comment here, and then we're just going to have a heading 1, and in our heading 1 we are just going to write this is a heading, and then we'll go to our style.css file. In our style.css file, we are going to style our, and inside our header 1 we are going to have double colon, and then we'll write before, open and close curly braces, then we'll write content is equals to content URL, and in our URL we are going to this folder. We are in day4, inside our images folder, and then we'll have wave.gif. And now you're able to see that there is an image that appears before heading 1. We are going to look at another element that is called the after pseudo element. The after pseudo element can be used to insert some content after the content of an element. We will write our header 2 to be header 2 so that it doesn't pick the styling of header 1. We're going to write header 2, and in our style.css we are going to write header 2 double colon and then after, and our content will just insert the same image. And now you're able to see that we have a GIF before the header 1, and we have a GIF after the header 2. The other thing we are going to look at is what is called the selection pseudo element. The selection pseudo element matches the portion of an element that is selected by a user. We are going to look at an example. We'll write a comment here, and we'll just paste a sample text. I'll just copy paste a sample text here, and we'll give it header 3. And in our style.css file, we are going to comment these other styling so that they don't interfere with what we want to display here. We will write the selection. We'll start with double colon and then selection, and write color. We're going to give it color red, and we're also going to give it a background. We're going to give it a background of color yellow. All right, so our background will be yellow and our text color will be red, and this is our text. When we highlight or we select our text here, you can see that the text changes its color to red and the background color is yellow. So that is how we use the selection pseudo element. The next thing we are going to look at is what we call CSS opacity and transparency. We will have a opacity.html file, and inside our CSS file we will have opacity.css, and we will connect it. Then we are going to I'll insert a sample text that we are going to use. We are going to use different types of images so that we can look on how the opacity works. Go ahead and write an image source. We'll go inside our day4 folder, we'll have to our images and then image forest.jpg. We'll have an alternate text, which is forest. We'll give it a height of 100 and we are going to give it a width of 170. We'll go to our opacity.css file and we are going to style our image. So write image and then we give it opacity of 0.5, and you can see that now our image here has 50% opacity. The next one we are going to look at is transparent hover effect. We're going to see when we hover our mouse around an image, the opacity effect that will take place. That is, the opacity property is often used together with the hover selector to change the opacity on mouse over. We are going to add 3 more images. Inside our images folder, we have another image that is mountains, and we have another image that is called the stary.jpg. The mountains.jpg has an alt of mountains, and the stary has a stary alt of Italy. We'll go to our opacity.css and we're also going to add our image, and we'll say image on hover state, image full colon, and then we say hover. That is when it is on hover state, we want it to have an opacity of 1.0. Click on save, and then you can see when we hover around our image, it changes to 1.0 opacity, and you can now see the image very clearly. The first CSS block is similar to the first code that we wrote, and in addition we have added what should happen when a user hovers over one of the images. In this case, we want the image to not be transparent when user hovers over it. The CSS for this is opacity 1. So when the mouse pointer moves away from the image will be transparent again. We are going to have an example of reversed hover effect. We'll comment on this style first, and then we'll write image on hover state. Let it have a 0.5. Let it be 0.5. Control save. We'll comment on all the styles and say image on hover state. Let it have an opacity of 0.5. This is a reversed hover effect. When we hover around our images, you can see that now it gives us an opacity of 0.5. Hi guys, so we are going to learn about navigation bars. In our DAY4 folder, create a navigation.html file. Inside our CSS folder, create a navigation.css file. Right, backslash, then select DAY4, select CSS folder, and then select navigation.css. Inside our body element, we are going to write an ordered list. A navigation bar is equals to list of links. We're going to have our unordered list, and inside our unordered list we are going to have a list, and inside this list we are going to have a link where we're going to have a link for home, and then we'll copy and paste this link 4 times. Click on Shift and Alt and the down arrow. You'll copy paste it 4 times, and then we'll have this as about us. then we'll have contact page, and then we will have news page. Okay, now let us go to our navigation.css file so that we can style our unordered list. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to remove the bullets and the margins and padding from the list. So we are going to have, let's have a comment here, remove the bullets and margins and paddings. The code to remove the padding says we are going to select our unordered list, open and close curly braces. Then we are going to have our list. We'll say list type. We're going to give it none. It has removed the bullets. And then we are going to give it a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. This one will give us the browser default settings. The other thing we are going to look at is that we are going now to set our navigation bar to be a vertical navigation bar. To build a vertical navigation bar, you can style the A elements inside the list in addition to the code from the previous page that you have been working with. Okay, so we will go back to our CSS file, and then we're going to write a list, and we're going to use our A tag, open and close curly braces, and we'll say we want it to display to be block with a width of 60 pixels, background color of something like grayish, and when we hover around our link, you can see that the whole block is now in link mode. The next thing we are going to do, we are going to style vertical navigation bar so that it will have a gray background, and then we will change the background color of the links when the user moves the mouse over it, and then we are going to change the text color. We will comment on this. We are going to add in our unordered list, we are going to give it a width of 200 pixels, and we are also going to give it a background color. That's a color, a gray color with F1, 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 with the same margin 0, padding 0, and the list style type is none. And in our list and our A tag, we are now going to display it as block. We are going to remove the width because we have already given our UL width. Now we are going to give it a color, a different color, and we're going to give it a slightly like a black color. So we have hash and 3 zeros, and then we are going to have a padding. Let's give it a padding of 8 pixels and 16 pixels. And let's give it a text decoration so that we remove this underlining. The underline, we say text decoration is none, so that it removes the underline. We'll go to our link, and we want to say when we hover our mouse around our link, we want it to have a different color, a different background color. So we'll say link, our list, and our A tag. So we'll say when it is on a hover state, we say background color. It's going to have a hash and then 555, and then give our text color white, such that when we hover, the text changes its color to white and the background is grayish. The next thing we are going to style is what we call active or current navigation link. We will add an active class to the current link to let the user know which page he or she is on. So we'll go back to our HTML page, our navigation HTML page, and in our home link, we are going to add in this list, In our first list, we are going to add a class, and this class we just call it active. Then we are going to style this active class. We'll go to our navigation.css file, and then we write dot or period to stand for class. So we'll write our period and then active, write our list, and then our a tag and a period active, and we're going to give it a background color of green and a text color of white. And then we are going to add that when a link is not active, it should have a grayish background color. The next thing we will look at is what is called CSS horizontal navigation bar. There are two ways to create a horizontal navigation bar. We can use inline or floating list items. We'll begin with inline list items. So let us check on the CSS horizontal navigation bar using the inline list items. Just use the same text. We will comment on all these styles, and we will begin our horizontal styling here. And we're going to say our unordered list will give a list style type. Now we want to use block, we are going to use inline. Our list style type is none, so that we can remove the bullets, and we'll give it a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. And then in our list we will say display as inline, and you can see that they are now horizontally arranged. When we use inline here, we remove the line breaks before and after each list item to display them on one line. That's what an inline display means. I'm going to give it a background color of grayish, that is hash and then DDD, right, hash and then 6 Ds, and then we're going to say overflow. It will be hidden overflow. The display block that we've written, it will allow us to specify padding and height and width and the margins that we want. So we will write a padding of 8 pixels, and now we are going to add the text color and the color when mouse hovers over the element. Let's give our background color a different color to black, and we're going to give our list a different color. We're going to give it text color white. Let's give it white color. You can see it has changed to white, and we are going to give it text align. Let us align them to the center. Our padding, we are going to increase our padding to 14 pixels and 16 pixels. That's nice. And text decoration, we write none so that we can remove the underlining. We want to change the color when mouse hovers over the text. Okay, so we'll say link, and our A element we say full colon hover, we say background color. Let us change its color to a more dark black. Let us create an active link, and this time we won't use home. Let us use news as our active link. We will style our active link, and say, because it's a class, we use period, and then background color, we'll give it a green background color. And we can also float our background color. We'll go and inline style. We will style this particular link that we want. So we are going to style it, and we are going to align it to the right. We'll go back to our HTML file, and in our HTML file, we are going to style. We are going to add a style inside our link tag here, and say style equals to float to the right. So our active link will float to the right, and you can see it has changed to the right. And when we move our mouse over our links, it changes its background color to black. The next thing we are going to look at is what is called as sticky navbar. I'll copy a sample text that we are going to use, and a sticky element toggles between relative and fixed depending on the scroll position. It is positioned relative until a given offset position is met in the viewport. Then it sticks in place. That means when you scroll over this text, our horizontal bar will just be sticky on top there. So we are going to increase our font. We'll go to our body, and then we'll increase the font size to make it large. We give it 28 pixels so that we can be able to scroll over this text. And you can see when we scroll, we are not able to see our horizontal bar, okay? But now we are going to style so that when we scroll, our horizontal bar is still in place. Inside our UL, we are going to add our unordered list. We are going to add a sticky property. The sticky property, we are going to give it position, and this one we call it WebKit sticky. A WebKit sticky, we are using it because of those people who use Safari, and Safari browsers requires a WebKit prefix. All right, so you must also specify at least one, top, right, bottom, or left for sticky position to work. So we'll use that web sticky, and then we'll use another position that we'll just call it sticky, and we are going to give it, where do we want to stick our navigation bar? We want it to be on top, so we'll say top to 0. When you scroll, you can see that now our horizontal navigation bar, it is fixed on top there. The next thing we are going to look at is CSS image gallery. Go ahead and write image.html file, and then inside our CSS folder have an image.css. Then link our CSS file with our HTML file. Inside our body, we are going to have a sample image that we are going to use. We are going to have a div, and inside this div, we are going to give it a class of gallery, and we are going to have a link where someone is able to select this link or is able to retrieve this link online. So we are going to have a href link where the image is found online. A href is where the image will be found online. Inside our folder, we are going to go to DAY4 and then images, and then we'll have this image.jpg, and we will connect it here. We'll copy and paste this div into 4 times. So I'll copy and paste this div 4 times. Then we'll change the second image to, we're going to give it this forest.jpg, and we'll have an alt of forest. We'll change it to forest, and then our image source will be forest.jpg. You can see that it has changed, and then we'll go to our third image up to our fourth image. We'll just change our third image to lights.jpg. It will have an alt of Northern Lights, and our image will be lights.jpg. And the last one will be mountains.jpg with an alt of mountains. Now we will go to our images.css file where we are going to style our images. We'll say div of class gallery, so that is div, and this class we put a period and then gallery, so it is div period gallery, open and close curly braces. We'll give it a margin of 5 pixels, and then we'll give it a border of 1 pixel solid, 1 pixel solid. We give it hash and then CC, triple C, solid hash triple C. That's going to be a faint black color, and then we're going to float to the left and we give a width of 180 pixels, width of 180 pixels. You can see that they are now displayed all together horizontally. Now we want to change it that when we move our mouse over it, it's going to change its color. So write div.gallery, and then on hover state we'll say border is going to be 1 pixel, and then solid like color black solid, and then hash 777. When we hover over our image, you can see it's changing its color. Our border color is changing to black color. Now we will select our div, our class gallery, and then we will select our image. So we will begin with the div, and then we go to class gallery, and then we select our image. So we give our width to 100%, and we give it a height of auto. The next thing we will style is our description, where our next div, we had a div and we give it a class of description. So we give it a div.desc, and then we are going to give a padding of 15 pixels, and we will text align our description to center. Now you can see that our images, they are nicely displayed. The next thing we are going to look at is what we call responsive image gallery. On this one, it is how to use CSS media queries to create a responsive image gallery that will look good on desktop, tablets, and smartphones. I will comment on this so that we can style it again. And we'll begin with our div and our class gallery. We'll give it a border of 1 pixel solid, like we had given the same color, hash CC, triple C, and then we'll come to div.gallery on hover state. Div.gallery, and we're giving it on a hover state. It's going to have a border of 1 pixel solid, hash 777, and then we select our div.gallery, and then we select our image. div.gallery, and then we select our image. We'll give it a width of 100% with the height of auto. Then we will select our div.description. We'll give it a padding of 15 pixels, and then we will text align it to the center. And then we are going to use this selector, the asterisk, where we are selecting our box, that is all selection, and we are saying box sizing equals to border box, and we are having a class that we called responsive. We created a div, and this div is, we will call it a responsive div. We're going to have a padding of 0 and 6 pixels. It will float to the left with a width of 24.99959%. And now we are going to style on different screens that we have. We will begin with a maximum of 700 pixels. So we'll say at media only screen and maximum width of 700 pixels, we are going to have, we will call our responsive class. We are going to give it a width of 49.959%, and then we give it a margin of 6 pixels and 0. We will copy and paste the same code, and we'll have a media only screen and maximum width of 500 pixels, and we will call our responsive class with width, we'll give it a width of 100 pixels, and then we will use .clearfix after, where we will say the content is equals to double marks. We'll give it a display of table, and then we will clear both. Now, for us to see the effect of our image, we are going to resize the browser window with the different screen sizes that we have styled for them. Okay. Yes. And that's what brings us to the end of this tutorial today. Go ahead and practice everything that we have learned. Do not forget to subscribe, to like, and to share this video if you have found it to be useful to you. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.